Hello and welcome back to the Adventures in Marketing podcast. I am your host, Gwen Montoya. I am a marketing strategist and I work with small business owners to help them make their marketing more effective. If this is your first time listening, thank you for pushing play. Thank you for giving it a shot. If you are a returning listener, thank you so much for coming back. Thank you for the kind notes and for the reviews. I really appreciate the time that you guys take to tell me that you like what I'm sharing. On today's episode, what I want to talk about is Instagram, because I'm hearing a lot of people express some frustration about Instagram, that their reach is down, that they are not seeing the growth that they thought that they were going to have, or the growth that they are used to having. And what's really interesting is that I am seeing this both in, business to business people talking to business owning friends, but I'm also seeing it in communities where professional marketers hang out. People who know honestly way more than I do and work with accounts that are much bigger and have had a bigger impact on their accounts and the work that they do. So it's really interesting to me that it is not just, business owners having challenges and regular marketers are doing fine with it. It really is both. And they are expressing the same frustrations over and over again. Now, before we get into this, I do have to say that I am biased because Instagram is actually not my favorite platform. It's probably the one that if I could stop using it, I would stop using it. However, I know that my audience is there. Some of you find me on Instagram. You send me notes on Instagram. And when I look at my Google Analytics, even though maybe my posts aren't going very far, I am getting traffic from Instagram. And I know that because I'm looking at my analytics. And you know how I feel about analytics and how important it is to pay attention to those. So that's something that I wanted to bring up as well, is that this is not necessarily my favorite platform, but I am there and I am a user there as much as I am a marketer there, since I do my own Instagram and then I also have clients. So today I want to dig into what makes Instagram happy, the best practices as shared directly from Instagram last month or the month before, and what I'm seeing. And then at the end, I'm going to wrap up with some tips and some things that you can try on your own account if you're feeling stuck or stagnant, maybe some things that you haven't thought about trying, or maybe you've heard about but weren't sure how to implement. So I want to cover those at the end. Now, everything that I'm going to share comes from, at least in this next section, comes from Instagram itself. They put out a really big blog post that talks about ranking and what works and what doesn't work there. And I will put that in the show notes for you so that you can go and review that for yourself. I'm going to be sharing what they wrote plus my own interpretation as somebody who has been doing this for years and years. So when it comes to Instagram, one of the first things to remember is that there is not one algorithm. Like, we talk about how challenging the algorithm is. We talk about how frustrating it is. The good news is that there's not an algorithm. The less good news is that there's actually 3 or 4. So I think that's a really important thing to think about. And that algorithm sort of expresses itself across the different methods of algorithms in different spaces, which I will talk about. It really depends. What you see there really depends on what you watch and the content that you like and that you comment on, because really it is designed to show you more of what you like, because Instagram's job is to keep you on the platform. The longer you stay on the platform, the more ad money they make selling ads for people who want to show you their stuff. So I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind, is that no matter how much that you love the content, one of the things we really have to think about is it entertaining? Is it engaging? Does it have value for your user? Right? And that's where a lot of times, especially the posts that are probably going to fall the most flat for you, are the ones that are more sales posts, and the ones that probably do well for you, generally speaking. Everybody's going to have different experiences, but those posts are going to be the ones that have like a little bit of humor or something unexpected or something that makes somebody kind of lean forward to want to learn more. One of the things to think about when we are thinking about these algorithms is that there is a stories algorithm, there is a main feed algorithm, and there is a reels algorithm. And I guess we could say that there's a threads algorithm, except that it's too new really to have that. But I think we can just really think about stories, the main feed post, and reels, each having their own sort of little ecosystem and their own little set of algorithms that decide what you're going to see. One of the things I always say about Instagram is that it's like 5 social media platforms in a trench coat, right? So it's really important to remember that these are all different, and what a user expects from them is going to be different. And yes, that is a ginormous pain to have to manage this as a small business owner when you are doing everything else. So let's talk about each section, let's call them sections of Instagram, and what is working there and what Instagram itself is saying, hey, this is the kind of content, this is what we're looking for, this is how we determine who sees what. So let's start with the feed post. The feed post, they describe it as kind of the best of the best. So the best content is what you're going to see, the content that is getting engagement, the content that is getting interaction and comments and shares and saves. Because again, Instagram wants us to stay on the platform. And if you're scrolling through the feed and you're not seeing something interesting, you're going to leave. You're going to go somewhere else. So the things that you are most likely to see in your feed are based on what Instagram calls their predictions. These are things that you have liked or commented on or shared in the past. You are clearly looking at it. You've maybe tapped on the profile pic, and the history also that you have with that particular person or that particular account. So are you showing that you are interested in what they have shared in the past? Then Instagram will show that to you again. Is it already popular? Is it already getting traction? Then Instagram will think that maybe you are interested in that as well. The information that that Instagram actually has about the person who made the post, right? Is this a person who tends to get good engagement on their posts, or is this a brand new account? That's why one of the challenges when you are first breaking into Instagram is getting that traction when you're new. And then also the previous interactions that you've had with that particular person who is posting. So you probably see like the people that you engage with the most often in your feed posts are the ones that you're going to see over and over again. If you stop engaging with somebody on an Instagram feed post, you will see that their account no longer appears in your feed post and you have to remember to go find them. That's just kind of the way that it works. And remember, it's not always going to work. I know that sometimes when I scroll through my Instagram feed, there's nothing of interest there to me. But ideally, what Instagram is trying to do is to put the most interesting things to you at the top of your feed. The ones are, you're probably going to see the posts that are the most popular, the ones that you are most likely to engage with, so that you stay on the platform. Because if every time you open your feed post, like I said, it is not something that you want to see, you'll scroll a couple of posts and then you'll close the app or you'll go somewhere else. And Instagram doesn't want you to do that. Is it as good of a recommendation system as TikTok? Not even close. It has gotten better. It's something that they have been focusing on, especially with their Reels. And also Meta owns Facebook as well. So we're seeing a lot of improvement in Facebook Reels as well, as far as recommendations and like, hey, we think you're going to like this. It's still going to have off days, but that's really something to think about when you are posting to your feed is how are you engaging with other accounts? That's why we talk about interaction. That's one of the reasons interaction is important. How are they engaging with you? Is it something that traditionally is going to be popular, right? So if you look at that kind of, like I joke about the aesthetic Instagram feed, that does well or does better on Instagram traditionally than, a dark, barely lit photo. That's where the quality of your post comes into account. There's just a lot of things that go into it, but that's something to keep in mind as well, is looking at what else is doing well on Instagram and how can you emulate that. And then when it comes to Instagram stories, and if you're not quite sure which one the stories are, because there's a lot going on with Instagram, stories only last for 24 hours and they sort of have a little red circle around your photo. If you have a new story, or if you see somebody and they have a story, it's going to be a little red circle. I believe it's red around your photo. And then it also appears in the little circle bubble dots when you log into the app. So what you're going to see there is Instagram sort of predicts what you're going to want to see based on what you've done in the past, right? Like that's kind of what an algorithm is. It's predicting what you're going to like and giving that to you. If you open that person's story, like you click on it, you reply, or you send a reaction, all of those things indicate interest, which means you will see those posts, those stories more often. These are signals that are kind of based on previous actions. So if you viewed that person's stories before, you're more likely to see their posts or their stories. Again, if you have already an interaction history with that person who is posting, so maybe you are mutuals, you both follow each other on Instagram, you comment on their regular posts, their feed posts, you send them DMs, you comment on their stories. All of that shows to Instagram that this is somebody that you want to see more of their content. So that's going to be more likely to see their content when you open the app. It's also going to be the higher the likelihood of you clicking on the story and like looking at it based on your previous actions. That's how you're going to see it more often in your stories. So when we're talking about that, then it is, what is the thing that works well for you in stories? It's going to depend on your business and who is following you. But if you know that certain types of content always do well in your stories, then it makes sense to do more of that kind of content. If there's content that typically doesn't do well, then it makes sense to experiment with it. Sometimes it is the timing, sometimes it is just the day of the week, and sometimes it is nothing that you have any control over, but you try it again and then it does well. So it's definitely a period of constantly experimenting and trying new things. Stories is also great because it disappears after 24 hours. So you can practice being a little more live video if you are nervous about doing that in other spaces. It disappears after 24 hours. If you want to, float a new idea, that's a good place to do it. That also means that when you're using the stickers, like the polls, or, asking people to vote on things, getting people to engage with your stories by using those poll stickers and asking them questions means that they are engaging with your stories, which means your stories are going to be more likely to appear in their feeds in the future. I know it's very convoluted, but it's the way that it works. So when we're thinking about feed posts, we're thinking really high quality, best of the best, fitting that Instagram vibe. With the stories, it's what have you interacted with in the past, or what has your audience interacted with of yours in the past, and how can you do more of that? How can you keep them engaged and interested on the platform? Because the more that we do that, the more Instagram can sell our data and make more money. So that's great for them, frustrating for us as business owners. We've talked about the main feed and we've talked about stories. Now let's talk about Instagram Reels. Now remember that Reels was copied from TikTok. So that's where that came from. It is this short form videos that are under 90 seconds, because I believe that that is the limit on Instagram as of the time I'm recording this podcast. So it is designed to be something short, snappy, entertaining, and have value to the user, whatever that means to the user. So whether it is something where it is educational content, or it makes them laugh, or it makes them feel something, those are the kinds of content that are going to do really well on Reels. The other thing to keep in mind is that Reels has a discoverability function that they have also sort of followed TikTok's idea on. So when you are scrolling through your Reels feed, you are going to see things that are interesting to you, probably people you're not following yet, but people that Instagram thinks that you might want to know about. So when you are thinking about what kind of content to make for your own business, think about the kinds of content that you know that your audience is interested in either learning about or experiencing, and that's going to be different for everybody's business. The other thing to keep in mind is that you see Reels based on what you interact with. So if you always like the cute puppy videos and you watch them all the way through to the end, and maybe you send them to your sister, you're going to be seeing a lot more cute puppy videos. But if a video starts and you watch like 2 seconds of it, because that's how our attention spans are, and you scroll away, you are giving Instagram a signal that says, I'm not interested in this content, which is also something that happens for your own videos. So that's why we talk about why the hook is really important, why sometimes the shorter videos can tend to do a little bit better, because people have really short attention spans, and Instagram is, or the Reels especially, is looking at, are people watching videos all the way through to the end? Because that's a big signal to them that this is interesting content. Because if you watched a whole 30 seconds of video on social media, that's a really long watch time. I know it sounds so short, but it really is. On social media, 30 seconds is kind of a long time. So you are signaling to the algorithm, you are signaling to especially the Reels algorithm, that this is content that you're used to. Instagram's job is to give you videos that you will watch, like, share, and engage with. It's better for them. When we're talking about creating our own videos, we have to think about what is something that our audience is going to want to watch, like, share, and engage with. And also, when we're talking about the audios and the way that the videos are made, some of that is also sort of inspirational. If Instagram thinks that maybe somebody would want to make a video that is similar to this or uses that same sound, then it will get pushed out. And that's one of the ways that we use trending audio to get in front of new audiences. We don't use trending audio because it's trending and popular. We use trending audio because it is more likely to push our content out in front of new people. That's why it's popular. That's kind of a backwards way to think about it. Like, it gets popular because people use it, and then we use it to get popular, but it's kind of the way that it works. The other thing to keep in mind about Reels is that it is always watching your overall activity. Have you engaged with this account, this specific account before? In addition to the type of content, have you also engaged with that specific creator? If you engage with, like, for example, a specific creator over and over again, maybe it's a humor creator, again, maybe it's a cute puppy creator, you're going to see their content more and more. Even if it's not necessarily about cute dogs, you're showing Instagram that you like this creator, and they're going to show you more of their content. That's just the way that it works. So we can reverse engineer it and think, okay, what does our audience really want to see? What are they interested in? What is something that is going to catch their attention? What is something that they are going to want to like, save, and share? Now, that doesn't mean you have to use Reels. It doesn't mean you have to use Stories. It doesn't even have to mean you have to use Instagram. But if you're going to use it and you're feeling frustrated, it's helpful to think really about what kind of content does my audience want to see, or what kind of content do I think my audience wants to see and experiment, versus I want to talk about my thing and Instagram is not showing it. So it's kind of a frustrating thing, because as business owners, we have things that we need to promote. We have things that we need to sell, and Instagram and social media in general is one of the best ways to do it. It's free if we're not paying for ads. We can have enormous reach sometimes, but not always. And it can feel very frustrating and very personal. But I think if we think about it, we shift the focus a little bit. What is our audience really going to engage with? What is going to keep them hooked? And then we do more of that. I think that's where we get better success with Instagram, as frustrating as it is. And that doesn't mean it's going to always work. There's definitely an element of always experimenting and playing with Instagram, with any social media platform, to see if it's working, to see, what's working this week, what worked last week. But thinking about it from our users' perspective, from our audience's perspective, can be really helpful. And you know what? I forgot one of the areas of algorithm. There is the feed, there is Stories, there is Reels, and there is also the Explore page. I completely forgot about that one. So let's talk about that one really quick. Explore is designed to keep you on the platform. It is designed to help you discover new things. That's what they say. It, again, is going to show you things that you have liked, that you have saved, that you have shared. Like, content in that vein is what you're going to see on the Explore page. You're also going to see things that are the most popular. You are going to see things that, again, that are based on your history. And also you're going to see things based on that content creator and your history with that content creator. So that's why you might see, a friend on the Explore page, and you get really excited because they made it to the Explore page. Yes, but they made it to your specific Explore page, and everybody's Explore page is probably going to be different. And in fact, a fun experiment you might do if you have a business bestie is for both of you to open your Explore pages and compare and contrast, because that can be really interesting to see what the algorithm is doing, and really think about why you're being served that content. Why are they showing you that? Because that can help you think a little bit differently about the content that you make, if you want to use Instagram to grow your audience and to have a community there. Not everybody does. You don't have to. But if you wanted to put more thought and intention into Instagram, that would be where I would start. And to be really honest here, there's a lot of people who do Instagram only. That is the only thing that they do. That is how they work their business. That is the service that they provide if they are, social media managers. And even they are struggling with Instagram. So, everything that I've told you is best practices. It comes from Instagram itself. Again, I'll put that in the show notes for you. But what if you're doing all of that and it's still not working? You are creating really good content. You are making pretty visuals. You are, posting the recommended number of times, and it's still not working. And that is so frustrating. And I can absolutely understand why you would want to just give up. So here are some things that I think that you could experiment with and see if it makes a difference. I wouldn't necessarily try all of these at once. It can be a lot, but I think looking at your own account, if you want to use Instagram, and thinking about, okay, what can I tweak? What can I change, is important. The other thing when it comes to social media that I like to remind people is that these changes and these tweaks, you're not necessarily going to see traction and movement and change with one post. This is really commit to doing one of these things for a month and see if it makes a difference. Commit to doing it for 6 weeks and see if it makes a difference, because it is not like one post is going to change your entire account. It is really more of always a series of fine-tuning and tweaking and experimenting. So I'm just going to start. I have a list of like 10 things I think that we could try and see if it has an impact on your account. And again, you'll have to, do this for a month and then look at your 30-day analytics and see, did the posts make a difference? Doing it this way, did doing these things make a difference? So number one is you could try geotagging, meaning adding a city or a location to your post. This does not mean add your house. Or even if you have a brick and mortar, it doesn't mean adding your brick and mortar location. What I mean is add the city. Or if you are a national brand, you can work anywhere. Try adding a different city. If you live in Portland, try adding Seattle or San Diego or Austin or Miami and see if that has any impact on your reach and the people that you are reaching. So that would be number one. Yes, you can do that. It's not going to hurt your account. Number two is using alt text, alternative text. We have this option now. Alternative text actually is just general best practices, and we should do it on all of our posts. But it helps people who use screen readers. So people who can't see the actual post or can't see it very well, the alt text, the alternative text, the screen reader will actually read it and tell them what that photo is about. So using a descriptive photo that might end up using one or two keywords that you would want your business to be found for is a really good way to do that. You can also use hashtags. Hashtags are, personally for me, really hit and miss. I don't really use them so much anymore. But for some businesses that I know, they get phenomenal reach with hashtags. So if you are using hashtags, take a look at the ones that you're using and make sure that they are updated. Look for some fresh ones, experiment, try some different ones, especially if you always use the same set of like 5 or 6 hashtags. Try experimenting with them. If you're using 15 to 30 hashtags, try cutting it way back. If you are only using one hashtag, try, adding 5 more and seeing how that works. What I normally recommend is to look for hashtags that have between 10,000 and 100,000 uses. Some people say go up to 250,000. I like keeping it a little bit on the smaller side. But if you're using, let's say, hashtag love, right, and there's 1 billion uses, as soon as you post it, it's going to get buried and nobody's going to see it. And if the point of hashtags is to help you get in front of new people, your content has to stick around long enough to be seen. So that is one thing to do. The other thing to do when you were talking about hashtags, what I usually recommend is if you are local, use a couple of local hashtags. Use a couple of hashtags that are related to what you do, to your industry, to your niche, to your business. And then use some hashtags that you think users would be looking for related to what you do. As an example, if you were a photographer, right, you would use your city and your county kind of hashtags. And then you would use some photography hashtags. But if you use photography hashtags, for example, if you are a photographer, then it would make sense to use local city and county and maybe even state hashtags depending on how it works in your area. It would also make sense to use photography related hashtags, but maybe it would also make sense to use some hashtags that are, if you're a family photographer, what are some family related hashtags that people are using that are not too big and not too small and would maybe get you in front of the audience that you are looking for? So if you are, for example, a photographer and you do family photography, so in a certain city, maybe some of the hashtags you would also use are, family fun, although that one is probably way too big, or making memories, family memories, something like that, because those people would also be looking at those kinds of hashtags and your content would, in theory, show up when they are searching. That is the point. Related to hashtags, you could also focus on making more SEO, search engine optimization, focused copy, because one of the things that Instagram is really working on is moving away from hashtags, although don't stop using them if it works for your business. But they're also focused more on the actual copy in the post. So the actual words that you are using in the post. So if, for example, you have a jewelry line and you are a maker and you don't use the word jewelry or necklace or bracelets or gift or whatever it is made out of, then it is harder for the search engine behind Instagram to understand what your post is about and give it to people who are searching for that product or item. So you can experiment with making your content a little bit more SEO focused. There's a lot of different ways that you can do some SEO search. Try searching on Instagram itself, and when you search for the kind of product or service that you offer, what other posts come up on Instagram, how are they doing it? You could start there. You could actually try some Google searches and see what words come up when you search your business. There's a lot of different ways to do some keyword research. It's not going to be perfect because it's not Instagram specific, but it should start you on the path. And then again, you can make posts with this more enhanced, more SEO focused copy and see if that has an impact or not. And for some of you, it will, and probably for some of you, it won't. Again, this is experimenting and trying different things. The other thing that you could do is try a different mix of reels, posts, stories, and carousels than what you've been doing. So basically change it up. If you never post reels, try a couple of reels. If you never post carousels, try a couple of carousels. If you never use stories, try stories. Try doing things differently to going in with an open mind, see what is working, see what seems to get engagement, and then do more of that. So you're kind of building on what works instead of sticking with something that maybe isn't working right now or isn't working anymore. As I mentioned before, when somebody interacts with your Instagram stories, meaning they leave a reaction for you, they leave a comment, they send you a DM based on your story, or you use the little stickers where somebody can vote, or there's a poll, something like that. When somebody interacts that way, they are more likely to see your content. So if you're not using that in your marketing strategy, maybe it's time to play with it. Try it out. See if you get a response. Also, don't be disheartened if you try it and you don't get a response right away. This might be something that takes some time versus something that will be done very quickly and your audience will immediately start voting. It is possible that you will put up one and it's crickets, but it's okay because it disappears after 24 hours. Nobody's going to know. You can just try it again. When it comes to reels and when it comes to your posts, your feed posts, think about what your audience is really looking for, right? You can't just post what you want to post. I know that sounds weird, but if your audience is looking for something that is funny and engaging and you are serious and deadpan, or they are looking for education and you are only posting sales posts, it's going to be hard for them to connect with you. So think about things that are entertaining, things that are eye-catching, things that have that sort of Instagram aesthetic value. It might be the thing that gets you unstuck if you're feeling stuck. Finally, it's really important to remember to be worth following. And obviously we are fantastic. Everybody should follow us, right? But in reality, there is so much content out there. Think about who you follow and why you follow them. What is the thing about them that makes you want to follow them? Now, take that and think about your own content and what would make it more followable, more worth following. Let's say that. What can you make in your content that would make it more worth following so that your audience knows that this is something that is for them? They're going to have a good time. They're going to be entertained. They're going to learn whatever it is that somebody is looking for. How can you bring that into your own content? Finally, I know that Instagram can be incredibly frustrating. As I have said before, it is my least favorite platform. I am there because you are there, because I have an audience there, and because it is a good way for me to reach my audience. But I also know that it is frustrating and can feel like a time suck and can feel pointless. So I want to talk about some things to keep in mind when we're talking about Instagram. So I want to remind you that going viral is pretty much never the answer to anything, despite it sounding really cool, right? And every now and then Instagram or any social media platform will give us a little boost and we'll have like all of these views and it feels so good. And I absolutely understand that. However, it is more important to pay attention to your sales, to pay attention to your actual customers and where they are coming from, and to pay attention to the impact that that has on your business over whether or not you got 100 likes on a post. Because a huge following isn't always the answer. You can have a very engaged, huge cheering section, small audience, and you can also have a huge audience that is not engaged and does not care about your content. The one that is engaged is going to be the one that's better for you. Keep that in mind. And also, if you want an engaged audience, you have to be an engaged creator, which means you can't just post on Instagram and never show up on the platform. You cannot expect somebody to be engaged with what you offer if you're not responding to comments, you are not engaging, leaving comments, having conversations with them on their own pages. It's really an important piece of social media is that it's social. Otherwise, if you're just posting on Instagram and never showing up on the platform, it is the equivalent of standing on a street corner and screaming. Like, yeah, you get some attention, but it's not necessarily going to lead to sales. Instagram or even social media isn't always the answer. If you have tried these things and they do not work and you cannot track income or views to your website from Instagram, it could be worth looking at how much engagement and how much effort you want to put into Instagram. If you know that you're not getting sales, if you know that you're not getting leads from Instagram, if you know that it is just sitting there and it is not working for you, and you have tried the other things that I suggested, then maybe Instagram is not where your people are. And that's okay. There are other places where your people probably are. And it would make more sense, rather than constantly hitting your head against the wall that is Instagram and the frustrations when you're not getting any benefit from it, to look at where else your audience is and how else you can show up for them. And again, I say that with the understanding that Instagram is not my favorite platform. However, when I look at my analytics, I can see that I get traffic from Instagram. I can see that I get clicks, and I do get clients from posting on Instagram or because I posted on Instagram. But also, those clients have watched me for a long time. So the other thing to keep in mind is that a single post on social media anywhere does not always equal a sale. Our audiences are probably following us around, paying attention to what we do for months before they ever make a purchase, before they ever reach out. So that's where that consistency piece comes in and is really important. But again, if you are being consistent and it is not working, then maybe your people aren't on Instagram, or maybe you're not connecting with them in the way that they want to be connected with, which again, going back to that list of some tweaks that you can try, all of those things are something that you can try and see if that makes a difference for your own Instagram account. I hope that this was helpful. I hope it gave you some ideas. I hope it gave you some commiseration if you are feeling frustrated on Instagram and feeling like everybody else except for you has a secret formula. I promise it's not true. I promise that you are not the only one, and even people who do this for a living can get frustrated with these social media platforms sometimes. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, gwen@gwenmontoya.com. As I mentioned before, look for the link to the Instagram blog post in the show notes that talks about these different algorithms and what they are looking for in each of the different little mini platforms on Instagram. That's Reels, Stories, your feed post, and the Explore page. And again, thank you so much for joining me. I hope that this was helpful, and I will talk to you next time.